If they beat South Carolina, they're going to 10-1. So if you're on this, you're TCU trained. Listen. Mark and Chavi have done the job, but I may be the spokesman for TCU women's basketball because I believe in these guys and I know what they can do. If they beat South Carolina, they're going to be 10-1 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually did try to look like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams. So that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today. Post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We just saw the Bills a little while ago come away with the win, 27-25 over the Ravens. They move on to the AFC Championship game to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, a matchup we have seen a number of times, not only throughout the regular season, throughout the postseason over the past few years, and the lines for that are already posted. We have seen some line movement already. I saw this at 47.5, and in terms of the total on FanDuel, it's now up to 48.5. I saw it at 1.5 in favor of the Chiefs. Then it was down to -1 for the Chiefs. It's back up to -1.5. The same thing can be said about the Commanders and the Eagles. Obviously, the lines are different. I saw 49.5 out there. Across the industry, always shot for the best lines available. So these lines are being posted. The player props are already posted for Eagles and Commanders, but let's recap what we saw from this game, because we need to take this game into context, because what we saw from the Bills on offense was okay. And frankly, being okay isn't good enough when it comes to potentially beating the Chiefs if people have Bills AFC futures, Chiefs AFC futures, obviously Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. Josh Allen combined for less than 150 total yards today. They actually got things going on the ground to a decent amount with James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, this trio that they've kind of developed in the backfield. And outside of Khalil Shakir, who had 6 catches for 67 yards, which was awesome. That has been his role basically the entire season. Kind of a de facto number one receiver. Obviously, when Diggs left in the offseason and they drafted Keon Coleman, they just didn't know what they were going to have in the passing game. And Khalil Shakir really stepped up to be that number one receiver. He was great. James Cook did hit the over on his receiving yards if you got him at 14.5, which is the line where it was. He ended with 15. But outside of that, we saw an extreme lack of production from everyone else in the Bills passing game. Now, this isn't to say like, oh, they're going to do the exact same thing next week, but Allen needs to be better than he was tonight. He needs to be better next week if they're going to have a shot against the Chiefs. Obviously, I expect him to be better, but it does have to be noted that he fell short of some of his props. Yes, he did cash in on the 2 touchdowns. He does go over on his carries attempts, but he only ended with 20 yards on the ground. So all in all, it was a good game from Josh Allen. And frankly, the Bills defense does deserve a lot of credit. Outside of, that late TD, they were pretty solid the whole game. So good stuff from the Bills. When it comes to the Ravens closing out the season, some players hit on some props if you cash in Isaiah Likely TD, Rashad Bateman TD. Mark Andrews did go over his receiving yards, which I spoke about at halftime. Some of these players cash you some props. If you had them in same game parlays, maybe you altered Andrews down, Rashad Bateman down, Derrick Henry ended with 84 yards. He did have a TD. Lamar had the passing TD. So I assume people are cashing bets on the Ravens, some type of SGPs, maybe I don't know, Allen rushing, Henry rushing kind of combination where we got good production out of the Ravens when it's all said and done. Obviously, Lamar going for 254 passing yards and 2 TDs was a great game for him to end out the season. So I think we can wrap that up. I really do. Now, I spoke about different types of markets we can be looking at when it comes to the Super Bowl futures, MVP futures. That's what I spoke about last week on this show, where you wanted to take certain positions on players. I said that I had a future on Derrick Henry at 31-1 to win Super Bowl MVP. I'm not seeing the MVP market posted right now, but hopefully it does get posted back again quickly. In terms of the Super Bowl odds as of now, the Eagles are actually the favorite at plus 185. The Chiefs are at plus 210. The Bills are plus 220. And the Commanders are at plus 700. Obviously, this is moving the Chiefs off of being the favorite just because it's a tougher game for them, or the sports books think it's a tougher game for them going up against the Bills compared to the Eagles, who are at home going up against the Commanders. So we will dive into listen, we got a full hour, so what do we want to go through? Let's go through Washington and Philly to start. We'll go through Bills, Chiefs second. There are no player props posted for Bills at Chiefs now. There's the touchdown score market up. And again, this game does have a 47.5 or 48.5 over-under. The Commanders at Eagles have full props posted, passing, rushing, receiving, et cetera, et cetera. I've already invested in some of these markets because there are obviously betting lines early is always important, but there are some clear markets that I think that we should see come to fruition when it's all said and done, and both of them involve Jaden Daniels. So let's get to that. Let's start with the pass. Actually, let's go through touchdown props first, then we'll move into the receiving props and passing props, what have you. So obviously, Saquon leading the way, minus 240 to score anytime touchdown. Hurts, minus 135. A.J. Brown, plus 135. The first Commanders player is Terry McLaurin at plus 140. Then we see Devontae Smith, plus 180. Then Daniels at plus 200. Robinson, plus 210. Ertz, plus 260. So on and so forth. When it comes to touchdown markets, obviously, if you've been following SportsGrid throughout the year, you know that I do not like to lay minus odds for touchdowns. That's just not something I like to do. Will I involve a player with minus odds into an SGP? Sure. I can reason myself to that, obviously building in some correlation with the player scoring, getting some yards, potentially a team winning. I won't be doing that this weekend, but just the general thought is no minus odds touchdowns as straight bets for me. That's just not what I do. A.J. Brown, obviously a lot of storylines with him dating back to last week. He leads the way for the receiving room for the Eagles. Let's actually jump into receiving as we do have head-to-heads already posted. So A.J. Brown, of course, leads the way for the Eagles. 60.5 is his receiving total. Terry McLaurin, who has been great for the Commanders, 62.5 for him. A.J. Brown was up at 87.5 yards 2 weeks ago, or I guess it's last week, but 2 games ago against the Green Bay Packers. He hits the under on that, ends the game with 10 yards. A.J. Brown was at 67 or 68 or so when it comes to today's game. And, of course, he hits the under on that. This line obviously has been adjusted a good amount, and now we see him sitting at only 60 receiving yards. This is obviously one of the lowest lines we've seen A.J. Brown throughout the entire season, as he has been the dominant pass catcher for the Eagles. I'm going to say that my first reaction to this game is Brown at 60, Devonta Smith at 47. I think one of them will go over, because ultimately we know what the Eagles' game plan is going to be, and it's going to be something along the lines of what we saw today, which is, hey, let's get the ball to Saquon. Let's get the ball to Saquon 20-plus times on the ground. He's going to push past 100 yards. He's maybe involved in the passing game. He's going to have 120, 130 combined yards. When it's all said and done, maybe more as he breaks off these long plays time and time again. And we're going to see the Eagles in a spot where they may not necessarily need to pass a ton. And one of the players in terms of their two dominant receivers, Brown and Smith, one of them will go over. So it comes down to deciding who you like. Smith at 47.5, I certainly don't mind. But man, A.J. Brown with a little bit of redemption, I kind of do like him over 16.5. Now, he had that long pass play, which he didn't haul in right at the corner pylon, which I'm not sure if it would have been a touchdown. It would have been a 35, 40-ish yard reception for him today and would have made his line a little bit different. So I don't mind buying into A.J. Brown after two slow games when we're getting a massive discount on his yardage sitting at only 60.5. So I'll look to A.J. Brown over 60.5 yards. Terry McLaurin, absolutely, like I said, been fantastic for him. And Terry McLaurin, the 5.5 receptions is interesting to me. As I've said time and time again, yards are always easy compared to receptions. And we can dig into this more as we're coming up to a break right now, but we will get into the reception versus receiving yards situation when it comes to Terry McLaurin, because I believe he should be targeted at a very, very high volume, but we want to break down what will be the best path to finding value. We're coming up against the break. We also turn to the rest of the TD market, the passing yards market, where I like Jaden Daniels for some. Stay tuned. Other side of the break. Pro Football Today post-game show.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We just saw the Bills come away with the win over the Ravens 27-25. We are now moving on to the games for next week, the AFC and NFC Championship game. We are already taking a look at props for Commanders versus Eagles. We're talking about the receiving market right now, and Terry McLaurin, as I said, has been absolutely awesome for the Commanders in the postseason. Obviously, 2 games, 87 plus yards in back-to-back games, a touchdown in back-to-back games. The volume of yards are there, the targets are there. So I don't mind going to Terry McLaurin over 62.5 receiving yards. And, as I've said, as I was explaining before the break, and as I have explained many times on SportsGrid throughout the year, that yards are always easier compared to receptions. A player breaks off a 50, 60, 70, 90-yard run, whatever it might be after the catch. He's going to cash all of his receiving yards totals, but you can't have 6 catches on 1 catch. I know it sounds silly, but Terry McLaurin can hit over 5.5 receptions on 1 catch. He can hit over 62.5 yards on 1 catch. The point being, however, I don't mind looking to Terry McLaurin for over 5.5 receptions. I also don't mind looking to De'Ami Brown for over 3.5 receptions. Now, I will say, Brown over 3.5 receptions is sitting at minus 164. That is extremely, extremely juiced. This is where, of course, I'll say, shop for the best lines available. Let me just check on over on DK to see if they have anything posted for total receptions for De'Ami Brown. His is 3.5 minus 130. So it's over 3.5 minus 130 for Brown on DK, and it is over 3.5 minus 164 over on FanDuel. That is a massive, massive discrepancy. So really do like that minus 130 on over 3.5. When we look to Brown, we are seeing consistent production from him, not for the entire year. His role in the offense has evolved as the season has gone on. 8 targets yesterday versus the Lions, 6 catches. 5 targets versus Tampa last week, 5 catches. Then dating back to close out the regular season, 4-5, 4-5 targets with 3-4, 3-4 receptions. Now, looking back to start the season, there's some games he's coming away with just 1 target, 1 reception. You got to understand that things have changed in the Commanders' offense. Now, do I expect him to be up at 8 targets? Maybe not. Do I expect him to be down at 1 or 2 targets? No. So we're going to get into that 5-6 range, maybe 7 if they do fall extremely far behind and have a ton of passing plays. So he needs to basically have 4 catches on 5 or 6 receptions. I think that's we want to know how many bites at the apple is he going to have. And I think that's a good spot to get De'Ami Brown. Now, the same thing can be said about Terry McLaurin. Again, always shopping for the best lines available. Looking at Terry McLaurin, it's 5.5 plus 116 on FanDuel. It's 4.5 minus 150 on DK. That I do like. Obviously, Terry McLaurin is their number 1 receiver. 6 targets, 4 catches against the Lions. 10 targets, 7 catches against Tampa. Now, he did have 12 targets going up against Dallas. We know that Daniels didn't play the rest of that game. 7, 6, 10, 8, 6 targets for McLaurin to close out the season. He has been downright awesome, basically the entire year. He's got some weird, kind of landmine games where he has 1 catch versus Philly back in November, 1 catch versus the Atlanta Falcons at the end of December for 5 yards. He's got some of these weird games in there, but I'm going to say those are just blips on the radar compared to what is the level of consistency that Scary Terry brings to the Commanders' offense. So, as of now, I do like the yards for McLaurin. And again, it is important to note, again, shopping for the best lines. As I said, McLaurin's line is 62.5 in terms of receiving yards. That's on FanDuel. It's up at 67.5 over on DK. So if you have access to both, you got to always find what you can get out there. It's 67.5 for Terry. It's 63.5 for A.J. Brown. So if you are liking overs on some of these players, there are lower lines over on FT. So I will look to McLaurin over 4.5 minus 150. That's something I'm personally comfortable with. De'Ami Brown over 3.5 minus 130. I just think they're going to be involved in the offense. Now, to round this all back, what I said was there are Daniels props that I like that I've already invested in for the Commanders. We see their line sitting here. Hurts is at 179.5. Daniels at 222.5. Passing touchdowns, obviously 1.5 for both of them. They're both plus money to the over. It's plus 134 for over 1.5 for Hurts, plus 132 for over 1.5 for Daniels. I've already invested in Daniels completions prop. Over 21.5 passing completions for James Daniels. That's sitting at minus 104. Do I expect the Commanders to be playing from behind? Yes, that's what the spread would indicate as we are sitting at 4. Does it move back to 5.5? It's back to 5.5. It was 4.5. I do expect them to be playing from behind. I don't expect to be playing from behind at a ton. It's not going to be like a multi-score game. What we've seen from the Commanders and Daniels this season is that he was breaking records for completion percentage, And that's the offense that they have built around him with Cliff Kingsbury as their OC. We have to remember the last game of the season versus Dallas, 6 completions, 12 attempts, he didn't play the whole game. 22, 24, 24, 24, 25, 25, 25, 22 completions to close out the season. The last time he didn't hit it, he played a full game, not including this Dallas game. The last time he didn't have higher than 21 and a half completions was November 10th against Pittsburgh, a game that they lost. He threw 17 of 34. That was his worst game as a starter this year, not including the game versus Carolina where he got hurt and not including the game versus Dallas where he didn't play the whole game. That was his worst game, 50% completion. Now, he did have 15 completions versus the Giants. That was 15 of 22. It was a bit of a different story because they were up in that game. They move the ball effectively. They move the ball quickly. He's going to pile up the completions against this Philly defense. I'm not going to say it's bad. It is very, very good. But if Matt Stafford can get out there and have a great game, I expect Daniels to be able to move the ball effectively. I'm not going to say they're going to be pouring out a ton of points, but I do like his completions over 21 and a half. So that's the start for Daniels over 21 and a half. We touched on the receivers. We will touch on another Daniels prop, which we can certainly get to as we're coming up against a break right now. We will circle back on the rushing props. We haven't spoken about those, actually. We'll get to them because I also like a Daniels prop there, and we will get to all of that other side of the break. Stay tuned to Pro Football Today post-game show.
Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We are going through the AFC and NFC championship games for next week. As we have the lines posted, we are already digging into player props for these games. Let's continue to go through these. As I said, I have some props that I like for Daniels. We went through the completions. I expect them to be able to move the ball through the air versus the Eagles' defense. I'm not saying they're going to be pouring in a ton of points, or Daniels will have like a ton of yards, but I expect him to be able to move the ball and pick up the plays. I also don't expect them to be able to run the ball a ton. Brian Robinson has been good for the Commanders as of late. He hasn't been amazing. So I do think this will be a passing game script for the Commanders. They are 5.5-point underdogs. It is a 47.5 over-under. This line was posted at 5.5. I did see it flash to 4.5 briefly. Will it come back? I don't know. But, seeing what we saw with the Chiefs and the Texans yesterday, the safety, the 9.5 points, is it 9.5, 8.5, wherever you got it. Obviously, getting the best lines is always important. Listen, if it moved to 4.5 and then it moved back to 5.5, if you think this is going to go to 6 or 6.5, whatever it might be, obviously you want to jump in on the Eagles as soon as you can before that line continues to move. Now, let's get back to some of these props. Let's get back to Washington and Philadelphia, and let's talk about the rushing market, because obviously this is dominated by Saquon Barkley. 125 is his rushing prop. 125.5 is what we see from Saquon Barkley. His rushing plus receiving is sitting at 142. This is hilarious. Brian Robinson, 37.5 for his rushing. Austin Eckler is 18.5. Kenny Gainwell's 10.5. Hurts is 28.5. Jaden Daniels is 55.5. Really, really interesting spot for Daniels. And when it comes to his rushing yards, 55.5 for him. Didn't hit it against the Lions. Didn't hit it against Tampa. Again, didn't play the full game against the Cowboys. He hit over 55 with 127 versus Atlanta. He had 81 versus Philly the second time that they played. 66 versus the Saints. He had 18 versus Philly the first time that they played. Now, what market do I like most for Daniels when it comes to rushing? Not just his yards, which I think are okay, but his longest rush. His longest rush, over 15.5 for his longest rush. It is juiced to the over at -128. It's -102 on the under. If I do expect the Commanders to be playing from behind, there are going to be times when that Philly pass rush is going to get after him and force him out of the pocket, and he's going to see rushes. And obviously the 55.5 can get there, but I specifically like the long market for him. So we saw a 15-yard longest rush for him yesterday versus Detroit, only 8 versus Tampa last week. Again, didn't play the whole game versus Dallas. He did have 16 for his longest rush in that game, but 25-29, 24-12, 23 is what we saw from him to close out the season. Obviously, there are a couple shorter games in there. The short games against Philly was 1 against 7. I should say the longest rush for him was a short gain of only 7, 4 against Pittsburgh. Those were games after he recently came back from that rib injury, but he also did have 16 versus the Giants. So I think there's going to be a chance for Daniels to really push things on offense, and it's going to be picking up easy completions, moving the ball effectively, picking up first downs, not having the ball in his hands too long. That's what we've seen from him the entire year. That's why his completion percentage was at 69% as a rookie, getting the ball out effectively. And then if he's forced out of the pocket, he's going to have chances to pick up some yards on the ground. So you could take the straight play, which is just go straight to the yard and say, it doesn't matter what his longest is. If he has 10 rushes, if he has 5 rushes, of course, he can get over 55.5 on just a couple. But specifically, I like the 15.5 market. This is not to say that I won't play the 55.5, but I think 15.5 is a pretty interesting market. Now, a lot of people are always going to be looking to Saquon over 21.5 for his longest rush, which I believe was 19.5 for today's game. And Saquon's breaking off these, not just 30-yard runs, 40-yard, but 60, 70-yard runs. He could go over this. It's kind of like the Derrick Henry, where we're just waiting for that breakout play for him to break off a 50, 60-yard run. So Saquon over 21.5, I don't mind it. It is juiced at -120 to the over. Keep that in mind. So we're coming up against a break now. Hopefully we get some props posted for Bills Chiefs. We do have the touchdown. Oh, we do have props posted for that, as I'm seeing right now live as we are coming up against a break. We will start to dive into Bills Chiefs on the other side of this break. Stay tuned to Pro Football Today recap show, looking at the championship games next weekend.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We are going through the championship games for next weekend. Those lines have been posted. We just went over the Commanders and the Eagles pretty extensively. Again, 47.5 over-under, 5.5 point spread in favor of the Eagles. We went through the touchdown market, some receiving. The rushing obviously is dominated by Saquon. A couple of props for Daniels that I like, again, over on the completions, 21.5. And over on 15.5 for his longest reception. Let's move on to Bills Chiefs. We got 3 segments left. We have touchdown market, passing props, receiving props, rushing props. Let's go through it again. 48.5 over under. It is a 1.5 point spread. Again, I saw 49.5 out there. It was -1 in favor of the Chiefs. It's back to 1.5. This is my first look at these props. Full gut reaction or knee-jerk reaction right from the top. Josh Allen, plus 105 for TD. Kelsey, plus 130. Cook, plus 140. Pacheco, plus 145. Kareem Hunt, plus 165. Worthy, plus 195. Khalil Shakir, plus 220. Drops down after that. Hopkins, I continue to have interest in. Maybe it's, my own fault that I just believe they brought in this veteran receiver for a reason. He's plus 360. Maybe I can talk myself into that again. Obviously, with a 48.5 over under, we got to judge how many touchdowns we're going to be getting, et cetera, et cetera. All right, passing props, the first time I've looked at them. Mahomes, 249.5, Allen, 231.5. Obviously, 1.5 each for the TDs. It's juiced heavily for Mahomes, -160 to the over. Allen is plus 118 for over 1.5 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 231.5. What would cause him to not get to 231.5 passing or 232 if he were to hit the over? The question is, what would cause him to not hit this? Either, it would have to be like an immense ground game from the Bills. Not just from Allen, but Cook, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson. They would all have to go for 50 yards on the ground. Right? 60 yards on the ground, where plus Allen, they're rushing for 150 or 200 yards on the ground, where Josh Allen throws the ball for 200 yards, and they have 400 yards of offense. Like, that is what would need to be required for Josh Allen to not hit over 231. And, looking back at yesterday's game, like CJ Stroud played a pretty good game. Pretty good game overall. They were able to move the ball effectively downfield. Now, they weren't able to convert on things, and that's a completely different story. We're not talking about the Texans offense compared to the Bills offense, but CJ Stroud was solid yesterday. 245, no interceptions, got the ball to his main receivers, got the ball to his tight end. Josh Allen is effectively, Josh Allen needs to hit 231 yards, at least in my mind, if the Bills are going to have a chance at beating the Chiefs, which I do think they have a very solid chance at doing it. So I'm inclined to lean to over 231.5 for Josh Allen. 249.5 for Mahomes seems a little bit high. I just don't know if he's going to be getting there. And this is not saying that he can't get there. It's just I don't know if he will need to. And or will there be enough plays that will enable him to do so. Let's move on to the receiving market because passing is kind of straightforward. If you think it's going to be a pure shootout, Josh Allen at 231.5 would be the spot to go. And if you think this game is going to be pushing to 50 total points, which the over-under would indicate at 48.5 with these offenses, Josh Allen 231.5 again is probably one of the easiest lines to take, at least as of face value as of now. Let's look at some of the receiving markets as I see these for the first time. Am I shocked to see Travis Kelce up at 67.5? No, it's not, especially after what we saw from him yesterday. Finally coming to life in the postseason. Another game with 100-plus yards. He's the favorite target of Mahomes. Can you get to 67.5? Yes, absolutely. Now, just shopping around, of course, for the best lines. Josh Allen's line is 226.5 over at DK. And Mahomes at 245.5. Not to jump back to passing, but just seeing this now, that they're both there. Okay. Makes a little bit of sense. As for receiving yards for these players, again, Kelce 67.5, Xavier Worthy is 49.5, Khalil Shakir is 55.5. Again, I'm inclined to lean to that. As I said last week, this very show, not at this exact time, but this very show last week, my gut reaction for Bills and Khalil Shakir was over 47.5 receiving yards. And that line closed, I believe it closed at 53 yards for Khalil Shakir, and he hit the over on that with 67. Again, I'm inclined to lean towards the over at 55.5. The Bills are going to need the offense in the passing game, and Khalil Shakir could very well be that player. Now, this is also somewhat of a Terry McLaurin situation where we could be looking at his total receptions as well. Khalil Shakir is also sitting at 55.5 over on DK. His receptions are also sitting at 5.5. The juice is a little bit different. You're getting a little bit of plus money. It's plus 126 for over 5.5 receptions on FanDuel. It's plus 115 over on DK. Of course, shop for the best lines available. What we see outside of Khalil Shakir in the passing game for the Bills, I think will, I'm not going to say determine how much the Bills move the ball down the field or how many points they score. But, as we saw today, it was Khalil Shakir, and that was really it. Right? We saw 15 receiving yards, 15 from James Cook as the second highest player on the Bills after Khalil Shakir having 67, Matt Collins with 12, Dalton Kincaid with 11, Curtis Samuel with 9, Ty Johnson with 8, Keon Coleman with 5. So when I'm looking at this, normally I want to say do we want to be buying into Amari Cooper, who had 1 target? Do we want to be buying into Dalton Kincaid, who at least we know has a decent, chemistry with Josh Allen? A part of me wants to, just say Keon Coleman's not going to be involved. I just, 23.5 for Keon Coleman seems too high. If he's literally not going to be on the field for snaps, he hasn't played a role thus far in the postseason. 1 target today, 1 catch for 5 yards. 1 catch, 3 targets last week versus Denver for 5 yards. The game against New England, we can't take into account, obviously, Josh Allen. He had 10 targets in that game. And there are games that Keon Coleman had 7 targets, but there are games where he's not bringing in a lot of balls. There's games where he is a bit of a deep threat, and he's not catching at 1 or 2, deep shots that he has. He's not picking up a whole lot of yards. 1 catch, 17 yards against the Pats the first time that they played. 1 catch for 64 yards versus the Lions in that shootout, but he only had 2 targets. So the point being is there are games where Keon Coleman may only see 2-3 targets, and if he brings one in, it may go for 30 or 40 yards or 64. But if he's not catching that, he's actually not really involved in the offense at a high rate. So I'm leaning on Keon Coleman under 23.5 receiving yards. If you were to ask me, who do I think the ball should be going to when it's all said and done, if the Bills, in their passing offense, for me, it's Khalil Shakir should be like tier 1. And then we have some sort of jumbled bunch that could be a Dalton Kincaid, could be James Cook coming out of the backfield. Maybe Amari Cooper as the veteran presence that they traded for a reason gets involved. So it's Khalil Shakir number 1, and then it's Kincaid, Cook, and Cooper. And I just don't know if Keon Coleman is going to play a role. And then we're going to see times where Matt Collins catches the ball, Curtis Samuel is involved, Ty Johnson. There are just too many options for me to buy into a rookie receiver who is not playing a role in their offense. So Keon Coleman under 23.5 receiving yards is looking to be, I don't want to say one of my favorite bets of this game. I just don't know if he's going to play a role. And 23.5 is a low line. I don't know if he'll even have one catch. So we're coming up against a break right now. We will continue to look at these markets. We can look at the rushing market because it is very, very interesting in this game compared to the other. Stay tuned. The other side of this break, Pro Football Today recap show. We'll be back.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
What's going on? Welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We are taking an early look at some of the lines for next week's championship games, AFC, NFC, what have you. We're going through this Chiefs-Bills game. We're just talking about the market for receivers, and I'm interested in getting to some Khalil Shakir props. I'm interested on unders when it comes to Keon Coleman. We went through the quarterback props for passing, and I was saying, Josh Allen, 231.5. This is a number he's basically got to be able to get to. You got to think what's a path to victory, not just for the Bills, but any team beating the Chiefs is like you got to put up points, and you got to put up points, touchdowns. Field goals do not beat the Chiefs. It's like the same thing that we saw for years against Brady and the Patriots. It's like if you settle for field goals, you will lose the game. If you settle for 2 field goals and you give Brady an extra chance, he's going to go score a touchdown. And if you settle for field goals, Mahomes is going to go down the field and score touchdowns. That's just what happens. We've seen this for years at this point. So the point being is that I think the Bills need to go out with the mindset saying, we got to score 4 touchdowns, right? We got to be at that 28 to 31 kind of point range. If we want to believe, especially in their defense, we got to know that our offense can at least take care of things. And that means Josh Allen has to pass for 231.5. So that's where I'm leaning on that passing market. The receiving market obviously is very interesting. We generally see most of the targets funneled to Travis Kelce in the playoffs. We know that. Can we see a Xavier Worthy play a role? Obviously, Hollywood Brown is back. Again, I continue to buy into DeAndre Hopkins at 28.5 yards just because I think they brought him in for a reason. Again, I'm buying into Khalil Shakir. I think outside of Khalil Shakir, the rest of the Bills' receiving room is just kind of jumbled. And the argument I made for some of these players last week, which is the same argument I made for a lot of teams kind of like the Bills throughout the season, is, Dalton Kincaid has been a consistent option for Josh Allen. And, when push comes to shove, he should be getting the ball. So Dalton Kincaid, 35.5 yards, Dalton Kincaid could go for 50. Dalton Kincaid could go for 50. So if you're willing to, buy into one specific player, he's the player that could do so. Let me look at his alt receiving yards. 50 plus receiving yards for Dalton Kincaid is plus 195. That's a big number. And again, it's only one extra catch, like 15 extra yards over his line isn't a whole lot. So that is what it is. I will double check, but I'm almost positive the Chiefs allowed the most receiving yards to opposing tight ends this season, at least throughout the regular season. I will double check that during the break. When it comes to the rushing market, it's actually really interesting because we know what the Chiefs do when it comes to their backfield, which is the split backfield between Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Obviously, since Pacheco has been back, they are splitting carries for the large portion. James Cook is at 55.5 rushing yards. He leads the entire game. Josh Allen is at 44.5. Then we have Pacheco at 35.5, and Kareem Hunt is at 33.5. And as I've done so many shows with Dave Sharapan on the pregame for Monday night and Thursday Night Football, when we have lines like this, where it's 33.5 for one player, 5.5 for the other, Dave would always say, the guys in the room's like, we don't know, so we're going to essentially make them the same. That is what we have here. Is like we don't know who's going to see the lion's share of the work in the backfield for the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt had 8 carries for 44 yards yesterday versus the Texans. Pacheco had 5 carries for 18 yards. We can take a look at some of of their game logs to close out the season. Obviously not the one versus the Broncos because obviously none of the starters played in that one. But when they played against the Steelers on Christmas, we saw Kareem Hunt with 9 carries for 20 yards, Pacheco with 6 carries for 18 yards. And then when they played the Texans prior to that, Kareem Hunt had 11 for 55 and Pacheco had 9 for 26. They're within 2 or 3 carries of each other. Now, Kareem Hunt, broke off a long 20-yard rush in this game against the Texans. That's why he was up at 55. But outside of that, he would have been 10 carries for 35 yards, and Pacheco would have been 9 carries for 26 yards. They are legitimately within 2 or 3 carries of each other and, 10, 12 yards of each other. So that's why, the point being is I don't know. I don't know when it comes to Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And frankly, that just pushes me to a spot where I have no interest in either of them. The answer would be Mahomes rushing out of the backfield. 24.5 is a number for Mahomes. We have continuously seen him scramble, obviously not just this season, but specifically in the playoffs throughout his career. Bills bringing that pressure. Yeah, he only had the 14 rushing yards versus Houston. He had 12 versus Pittsburgh in his last game of the regular season. He didn't have any rushing yards versus the Bills when they played earlier in the year, to be clear, but there are games where he's consistently pushing to 20 or 30 rushing yards. So I'm on board with Mahomes scrambling out of the pocket, looking kind of slow but also kind of fast at the exact same time for some reason. I don't know how he does it. But Mahomes going over 24 and a half rushing yards. So that's where I'm leaning when it comes to the rushing market. I have no idea what I would do with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, and frankly, I think playing the under on both of them might be a spot that I almost want to lean. I would side with going under on Pacheco to start. And I'm uncertain about James Cook at 55 and a half yards. I really, really don't know if he's going to have enough carries to get to 55 and a half, and or will they be playing from behind and they just won't be running the ball, combined with the fact that Ty Johnson and Ray Davis are now eating into the James Cook usage and is taking carries away from him. So from a team perspective, it's great to have other options in the backfield. But from a betting perspective, it makes things tough that Cook is actually not seeing as many carries as we thought he would see or we would like to see if you are betting on some of his props. So it may lead me to under 55 and a half yards for James Cook, at least on the ground. I do think he plays a role in the receiving game. We're coming up against the break right now. We have one more segment. We will close things out and tie this all together with some Super Bowl talk, Super Bowl MVP talk, whatever it might be on the other side of this break. Pro Football Today post-game. Stay tuned.
Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today. And stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
What's going on, and welcome to Pro Football Today post-game show. My name is Tom Vecchio. We are closing out this last segment with a little bit of Super Bowl MVP talk for the final segment. Now, when it comes to the Super Bowl odds and Super Bowl MVP odds, there's a minor difference that you can actually look to take advantage of, which I've talked about before, talked about last week. We have a very clear picture for this week, obviously, because two of the teams will be eliminated. And the Super Bowl MVP, half these players are just going to be lopped off because they're going to be done. The clearest example I can give is with the Kansas City Chiefs. We can dive into some things more with the Eagles. The Chiefs are plus 210 to win the Super Bowl. Mahomes' Super Bowl MVP odds are plus 260. Plus 260 is a better number compared to plus 210. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, who wins MVP? It is probably going to be Patrick Mahomes. Like 8.5 times out of 10, it's going to be Mahomes. Maybe one time it's Travis Kelce, he has a massive game, or a receiver. And then one time, maybe it's someone like Chris Jones, who has like multiple sacks, a forced fumble, blah, blah, blah. The point being, you are getting a better number when you are betting on the player to win MVP. So when it comes to MVPs, quarterbacks have won them 33 times, wide receivers 8, running backs 7, linebackers 4, DNs twice, safeties twice, corner once, D tackle once, and then kick returner / punt returner once. So the overwhelming majority of the time, if a team wins, it's going to be the quarterback. So if you like the Chiefs to win, you don't have a Super Bowl future, maybe you had a Lions future, maybe you had a Rams future, whatever it might be. Those are done. You don't have any more futures in the mix. You want to have a little bit of action over the next few weeks. If you bet on Mahomes at plus 260 to win MVP, Super Bowl MVP, you are effectively betting on them to win the Super Bowl at a better price. The more interesting argument can be made when it comes to the Eagles. The Eagles are the Super Bowl favorite right now in the FanDuel Sportsbook at plus 185. Hurts is plus 550. Saquon is also plus 550. So when I would say, Mahomes wins at 8.5 times if the Chiefs were to win, I don't know what that is for the Eagles. Maybe it's like 6 out of 10 times Hurts wins it, 4 out of 10 times Saquon wins it, or maybe it is a 6 for Barkley and 4 for Hurts, or 3 for Hurts, and then 1 for maybe Brown or Smith. So again, if you like the Eagles to win, if the Eagles make the Super Bowl, Saquon Barkley is not going to be plus 550 to win Super Bowl MVP. So there are really, really interesting spots to take. Now, there isn't as much wiggle room for some other players where, the Bills are plus 220 to win the Super Bowl and Josh Allen is plus 240. Maybe that's, not a big differential. At least it isn't for me. But man, plus 550 for Saquon when the Eagles are plus 185, that's a little bit of a difference that we can buy into. And this is what I spoke about last week when Saquon was sitting at 15-1 to win Super Bowl MVP. And I said the same thing about Jahmyr Gibbs when he was also tied at 15-1. I said the same thing, when I was talking about Derrick Henry, a player I had a ticket on at 31-1. So again, and listen, the list goes on and on. If you think Travis Kelce could win Super Bowl MVP, he's at 4,200 right now. Now, obviously, there are players we don't want to be taking shots on. Like, I would not take a shot on Marquise Brown, Isaiah Pacheco, some of these players, Dallas Goedert, no thanks. DeAndre Hopkins, probably not. Do you want to get really interesting and go to someone like a Jalen Carter? I did make an argument for Chris Jones, but Jalen Carter, sacks, turnovers, those kind of things. He's at 160-1. Maybe a little bit of a stretch for some people. I think betting on Saquon to win Super Bowl MVP in the hopes that they take care of business at home, they beat the Commanders. Saquon will not be 5.5-1 to win Super Bowl MVP if the Eagles sort of make it. That's just, it is what it is. So that's an interesting spot to take. Again, if you've lost your Lions futures, your Green Bay futures, your Rams futures, what have you, there's an interesting spot to attack. Personally, I'm going to jump in on Saquon at 5.5-1. As I said last week, I had the Derrick Henry ticket at 31-1. That did not come to fruition. I'm effectively betting on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl if Saquon were to get it at 5.5-1. I said the same thing last year when I spoke about Christian McCaffrey on the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. I said that at the beginning of the playoffs. I do this every single year. We're taking a player at longer odds, and if they make it that far, you will have a great closing number on that. So we are done. We have 2 great games coming up next week again. Chiefs at home, minus 1.5 point favorites, 48.5 over under. The Eagles are at home, 5.5 point favorite, 47.5 over under. We spoke about some James Daniels props, some Khalil Shakir props. All of those will be discussed throughout the week. Good luck with the rest of the playoffs and your bets. We'll see you guys later here on SportsGrid.